The morning fog rolled through Riverside Cemetery like memory itself. Thick, gray, unwilling to lift. Benjamin Goldman stood before the granite headstone, his weathered hands trembling slightly as he placed fresh roses at its base. The numbers tattooed on his left forearm had faded over 73 years, but they were still there, always there, a permanent reminder that some marks never truly disappear. Sarah Rebecca Goldman, beloved wife, mother, light of my life, 1948 to 2023. 2 years. It had been 2 years since the cancer took her. 2 years since he last heard her laugh. 2 years of waking to an empty bed in an empty house filled with empty rooms that echoed with memories of a life that felt increasingly distant. Ben traced his fingers across the carved letters of her name. The stone was cold. Everything was cold these days. I met someone yesterday, my love, he whispered to the grave. A young woman, a warrior, like the ones who saved me all those years ago. She carries the same weight in her eyes, that look. You remember, the one I used to see in the mirror before you taught me how to smile again. A crow cawed somewhere in the cemetery, the only response the dead could offer. Ben closed his eyes and saw her, not Sarah in the hospital bed, thin and frail and fighting a battle even her strength could not win, but Sarah at 25, dancing in their tiny apartment in Brooklyn, laughing as he fumbled with the menorah on their first Hanukkah together, teaching him that survival was not the same as living, that breathing was not the same as being alive. He had been 33 when they married, a jeweler by trade, a broken man by experience. She had known somehow what he carried, the weight of Auschwitz, the guilt of watching his mother taken to the gas chamber while he hid in a pile of corpses at age 6 and 19 from the shame of living when 6 million had not. Sarah had never asked him to forget. She had only asked him to forgive, himself most of all. The wind picked up. Ben pulled his coat tighter. His joints ached more these days. 80 years old this month. October 2024. 8 decades on this earth. 73 of them spent trying to outrun a past that moved faster than he could. I think it's almost time, he said to the stone. I can feel it. Something's coming. After all these years, I think the past has finally caught up. He stood there another moment, silent. Then he turned and walked slowly through the rows of graves. So many dead, so many stories ended. His would join them soon enough. But not today. Not yet. Yay! 3 miles across Portland, Maya Reeves sat in the back corner of Riverside Café, staring at the same page of her book she had been pretending to read for the past 20 minutes. The words blurred, refused to form meaning. Her hands were steady. That was good. They had shaken for the first month after retirement. Muscle memory searching for the weight of a weapon that was no longer there, looking for threats that existed only in her mind. Or maybe they were real. Maybe the threats never left. Maybe they just changed shape, became invisible, became the everyday mundane horror of civilian life where nobody understood and everybody expected you to just be normal. Whatever normal meant. Maya took a sip of chamomile tea. The therapist had recommended it, something about calming the nervous system, as if tea could wash away 8 years of combat, 4 tours, 3 continents. Too many firefights to count. Too many faces in the dark that visited when she closed her eyes. The cafe was nearly empty, 3:15 on a Thursday afternoon. A few college students hunched over laptops, an elderly couple sharing a slice of cake. The young barista, Emma, wiping down the espresso machine with the kind of focused intensity that suggested she was thinking about something far away. Maya knew that look. The escape into routine. The refuge of simple tasks that required just enough attention to keep the demons quiet. She wore reading glasses now, a soft cream sweater over dark jeans, her honey blonde hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. To anyone watching, she looked like any other 32-year-old woman enjoying a quiet afternoon. Someone comfortable with words. Someone who had never held a rifle, never called in an airstrike, never made the kind of decisions that kept you awake at 3 in the morning, wondering if you were a hero or a monster or something in between. The bell above the door chimed. Maya's eyes flickered up. Tactical awareness, ingrained, automatic, assess, categorize, threat level. Benjamin Goldman shuffled in, slow, careful. The walk of a man whose body remembered being young but no longer had the strength to prove it. He came here every day. Same time, same order. Black coffee, 1 sugar, a blueberry scone if Emma had made them fresh that morning. They had never spoken beyond pleasantries. Good morning, thank you, have a nice day. The social contract of strangers sharing space. But Maya had watched him, the way he sometimes stared out the window with an expression that suggested he was seeing something other than the Portland street outside. The way his hands shook slightly when he lifted his cup. The way he touched the faded numbers on his forearm when he thought no one was looking. She recognized that gesture, the unconscious reaching for old wounds, checking to make sure they were still there, still real. Proof that the past had happened, that it was not just nightmare, not just memory, but actual lived experience that had shaped and broken and remade you into whoever you were now. Emma brightened when Ben approached the counter. "Mr. Goldman, I made your favorite today." Her voice carried across the quiet cafe. Young, optimistic, unburdened by the kind of weight that came from seeing too much, living through too much, surviving when you should not have. Ben smiled. It reached his eyes. That was rare. "You spoil an old man, Emma. You deserve spoiling. You're my best customer." "I'm your oldest customer. There's a difference." Emma laughed. The sound was clean, pure. Maya found herself envying it, the ease of joy, the simple transaction of human connection without the constant calculation of threat assessment and exit strategies. Ben paid, took his coffee and scone, turned. His eyes met Maya's. Something passed between them. Recognition, not of each other, but of something shared. Something that could not be explained. Only felt, only known by those who carried it. He walked toward her table. Maya tensed, not from fear, from uncertainty. She had spent 6 months avoiding connection, avoiding questions, avoiding the inevitable moment when someone asked what she did before, and she would have to decide between lying and facing the conversation she was not ready to have. "Excuse me," Ben said. His voice carried an accent, faint, Eastern European, smoothed by decades in America but still there underneath. "I don't mean to intrude, but I wonder if you might have a moment for an old man who talks too much and listens too little." Maya gestured to the empty chair across from her. Ben sat slowly, grateful. He set his coffee down with both hands, steadying. They sat in silence for a moment, not uncomfortable, just two people sharing space, two souls recognizing something familiar in each other. "I know that look," Ben said finally. "The one you wear when you think no one is watching. I have seen it before, in mirrors, in photographs, in the faces of others who carry things they wish they could put down but cannot." Maya closed her book. "No point pretending anymore." "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do." His eyes were kind, tired, ancient, not with years, with experience, with the weight of living through things that should have killed him but did not. "Survivor's guilt," he continued. "That is what they call it now. We did not have such fancy terms in my day. We just called it living when others died, and wondering why we deserved the privilege." Maya felt something crack inside her chest. A wall she had built carefully over 6 months, brick by brick, silence by silence. "Who did you lose?" she asked. Her voice was quieter than she intended. "My mother, when I was 6 years old. Auschwitz, 1944. She told me to hide in a pile of bodies when the soldiers came. I did. I survived. She did not. I have spent 80 years trying to understand why I lived and she died. I have not found an answer. I suspect I never will." The cafe seemed to fade. The college students, the elderly couple, Emma at the counter, everything dimmed except this moment, this conversation, this unexpected honesty between strangers who were no longer strangers. "Afghanistan," Maya heard herself say. 2018, Kandahar province, my teammate, Marcus. We were extracting 3 Marines who had been pinned down by insurgent fire. We got to them, but on the way out, Marcus took rounds covering our retreat. I had to choose, go back for him and risk losing everyone, or keep moving and leave him. She stopped, swallowed. I kept moving. Command decision, save 3 or risk 6. The math was clear, but math doesn't explain why I get to sit here drinking tea while Marcus is in the ground. Ben reached across the table, placed his weathered hand over hers. "The hardest choices do not have right answers," he said. "Only consequences we must live with. You're Marcus. He knew the risk. He made his choice. To protect his brothers. That is not tragedy. That is love. The most powerful kind. The kind that gives everything and asks nothing in return." A tear rolled down Maya's cheek, the first she had allowed herself in 6 months. "How do you live with it?" she asked. "You find purpose. You honor their sacrifice by not wasting the life they gave you. You remember. You carry them, but you do not let the weight crush you. You learn to walk with it, one step at a time, one day at a time, and you forgive yourself, even when you do not believe you deserve forgiveness, especially then. Emma appeared at their table, concerned. Is everything okay? Maya wiped her face quickly, nodded. Ben smiled at Emma, that genuine smile that transformed his ancient face into something younger, something that remembered joy. Everything is fine, my dear. Just two old souls sharing stories. Emma hesitated, then nodded, retreated. Ben reached into his pocket, pulled out something small, placed it on the table between them. A Star of David, silver, worn smooth, suspended on a delicate chain. This belonged to my wife, Sarah. She wore it every day for 56 years. When she was dying, she made me promise to give it to someone who needed it. Someone who was lost. Someone who needed to remember that hope exists even in the darkest places. He pushed it toward Maya. I think she would want you to have it. Maya stared at the necklace, shaking her head. I can't. This is yours, your memory of her. My memory of her lives here. Ben touched his chest. And here. He touched his head. The necklace is just metal, just symbol. But symbols have power. They remind us of what we are fighting for, what we are living for. Take it. Honor my Sarah by finding your own light again. Maya picked up the necklace. The metal was warm. She felt something loosen in her chest. Not healing, not yet, but the beginning of possibility. The first crack in the wall that might let light in. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you, Ben replied, for letting an old man feel useful one more time, for listening, for understanding, for surviving. They sat together in comfortable silence. Two warriors from different wars, different times, different battles, but the same struggle underneath. The eternal human question of how to live with what you have done, what you have seen, what you carry. Outside, the afternoon light began to shift. Golden, fading. Neither of them noticed the three men who entered the cafe. Dark clothing, hard eyes. The kind of men who walked into rooms and changed the atmosphere. Made the air heavier, made instincts prickle. But Maya noticed. She always noticed. Victor Kane stood just inside the doorway of Riverside Cafe and let his eyes adjust to the interior light. His prosthetic leg ached, always did before rain. The doctor said it was phantom pain, nerve memory, the body remembering what it had lost in mourning. He understood mourning. Behind him, Jack Morrison shifted his weight. Bull, they had called him in the Marines, Vietnam. Khe-Sanh, 1968. 56 years ago, but yesterday in his memory. Some things time could not erase, only bury. And buried things had a way of surfacing when you least expected. The third man, Jake Morrison, scanned the cafe with professional efficiency. Younger, 45. Iraq veteran, Bull's nephew. He had not been there, had not experienced the particular hell of Vietnam. But he understood. He carried his own ghosts, his own questions about why he survived when brothers did not. Victor saw them immediately. The old man and the young woman sitting together in the corner, deep in conversation. The body language of people sharing weight. Benjamin Goldman, after 50 years, after decades of searching, after following cold trails and dead ends and rumors. Here he sat, drinking coffee, living a peaceful civilian life, while men Victor had served with were dead, while their families grew old, wondering why their sons and fathers and brothers had been abandoned. Rage was too simple a word for what Victor felt, too clean, too temporary. This was deeper, colder. The kind of fury that had calcified over half a century into something harder than bone, more permanent than scar tissue. It had become part of him, woven into his identity. Victor Kane was not just a man. He was a living monument to betrayal, to the promises America made and broke, to the soldiers who served and were forgotten. That's him, Victor said quietly. Benjamin Goldman, CIA informant, the man whose intelligence reports got my team killed. Bull's jaw tightened. He remembered. He had been there, had seen it happen, had watched 12 good men walk into an ambush because someone somewhere decided that protecting a source was more important than protecting soldiers. Jake said nothing, just watched, assessed, ready. They moved to a table in the back, ordered coffee, played the part of normal customers. But there was nothing normal about this moment, this meeting, this reckoning, 50 years in the making. Victor's eyes never left Goldman, studied him, memorized him. This man who had lived a full life while Victor's brothers died young, while their children grew up without fathers, while their wives learned to sleep alone in beds that should have been shared. The old man looked up. For a moment, their eyes met across the cafe. Goldman's expression changed. Subtle, but Victor saw it. Recognition. Not of him specifically, but of threat, of danger. The instinct that never died. The awareness that came from living through things that taught you the world was not safe. That peace was temporary. That monsters wore human faces and sometimes they found you. Goldman returned his attention to the woman. Said something. She nodded, wiped her face. Victor felt a flicker of something unexpected. Curiosity. Who was she? What connection did she have to Goldman? She did not move like a civilian. There was something in her posture, her awareness, the way she had clocked them the moment they entered, the way her eyes flickered to exits, to cover, to threat vectors. Military, no question. But what branch? What wars? It did not matter. Not really. If she got in the way, she would become collateral damage. Unfortunate, but acceptable. This was about justice, about settling accounts, about making sure that before he died, Victor Kane looked into Benjamin Goldman's eyes and made him understand the cost of his choices. They had been planning this for months, ever since Jake's contact at the FBI let slip that a former CIA informant from the Cold War era was living in Portland under his real name. Ever since Victor confirmed it was the same Benjamin Goldman whose reports had led to Operation Thunderstrike, the bombing campaign that destroyed NVA supply routes, and coincidentally revealed the position of Victor's Special Forces team, and coincidentally got them captured, tortured, killed. The CIA had promised extraction, had promised protection, had promised that no American soldiers would be sacrificed to protect their precious intelligence network. They had lied. Victor had spent 6 months in the Hanoi Hilton, 6 months of torture, of isolation, of wondering if anyone was coming, if anyone cared, if America even remembered he existed. They had not come, had not cared, had not remembered. He came home in 1971, broken, angry, betrayed. Came home to a country that called him baby killer, that spit on veterans, that wanted to forget Vietnam had ever happened. His wife left him, took their daughter, got a restraining order, said she could not live with the violence in his eyes, the rage in his heart, the bitterness in his soul. She had been right. He was all those things. The war had taken the man she married and returned something else, something twisted, something that could not sleep, could not love, could not let go. 50 years of that rage burning, never dimming, only growing hotter, more focused, more patient. And now, finally, the chance to make it right, to make someone pay, to make someone understand what it felt like to have everything taken, everything lost, everything broken. Bull leaned forward, whispered, "Security cameras, behind counter, 2 exits, front and back, windows reinforced. Owner probably has silent alarm." Victor nodded. They had scouted this location 3 times, knew every detail, every variable, every risk. "We wait," Victor said. "Let him finish. Let him leave. Follow him home. We do this right. No witnesses, no mistakes, no mercy." Jake checked his phone, pulled up blueprints they had acquired through less than legal channels. Goldman's jewelry shop, next door, ground floor, second floor apartment above, alarm system, safe, everything they needed. "The documents are there," Jake said, "in the safe. CIA files from the Cold War, names of every asset, every operation, every betrayal. If we get those, we can expose everything. Make the bastards in Washington answer for what they did. Make them admit they abandoned us." Victor's hand clenched, released. The phantom limb below his knee screamed. Always did when adrenaline spiked. The body's cruel joke, losing a piece of yourself but feeling it forever. "The files are secondary," Victor said. "I want him to look at me. I want him to know who I am, what he did. I want him to understand that actions have consequences, that sins do not disappear just because time passes, that justice may be delayed, but it always comes." They sat, they waited, they watched. Across the cafe, Benjamin Goldman finished his coffee, stood slowly, said something to the young woman. She nodded, smiled, a real smile, the kind that suggested healing. hope, future. Victor hated that smile, hated the ease with which Goldman moved through the world, as if he deserved peace, as if he had earned the right to grow old, to find comfort, to sit in cafes and make young warriors feel better about their guilt. He had no right, none, and Victor would make sure he understood that before this was over. Goldman walked to the counter, paid, said something to the barista that made her laugh. Then he headed toward the door. Victor let him pass, waited, counted to 30, then stood. "Let's go," he said. Bull and Jake followed. The hunt had begun. Maya watched the three men leave. Her instinct screamed. Something was wrong. Something was dangerous. Something was about to happen. She stood, moved to the window, watched them walk down the street, watched Ben turn the corner, watched the three men follow at a distance, professional, trained, predators stalking prey. Her heart rate increased, not panic, battle readiness, the shift from civilian to operator, the transformation that happened in seconds, that never really went away, no matter how much you tried to leave it behind. Emma appeared beside her. "Do you know those men?" "No," Maya said, "but I know the type, and I know trouble when I see it." She pulled out her phone, hesitated. Who would she call? The police? And say what? Three men walked into a cafe and made me nervous? They had done nothing illegal, nothing threatening, nothing actionable. But Maya knew, the same way she had known to take cover 3 seconds before the mortar round hit in Helmand Province. The same way she had known to move left instead of right when clearing rooms in Fallujah. The same way she had known Marcus was hit before she heard him call out. Intuition, experience, the accumulated wisdom of staying alive when everything was trying to kill you. She dialed Tommy Chen, Portland PD detective, former Army Ranger. Someone who understood, someone who would not ask stupid questions or demand proof, someone who would trust her gut. He answered on the second ring. "Maya, what's wrong?" Straight to the point. No pleasantries. He heard it in her voice. The shift, the readiness, the preparation for violence. "I'm at Riverside Cafe. Three men just followed an elderly regular out. Something's wrong, I can feel it." Description: lead man, late 60s, prosthetic leg, military bearing. Two others, one older, 50s maybe, built like a linebacker. One younger, mid-40s, tech specialist based on equipment, all carrying, concealed, but I could tell. "You think they're targeting the old man?" "I know they are." Silence for a moment. Then Tommy's voice, harder, focused. "What's your location?" "Morrison Street, heading toward the jewelry district." "I'm 10 minutes out. Do not engage, Maya. Do you hear me? Do not engage. You're not SEAL anymore. You're civilian. Let us handle it." Maya hung up, grabbed her jacket, moved toward the door. Emma called after her. "Where are you going?" "To make sure an old man gets home safe." She did not wait for response, did not explain, did not have time. Because across town, Benjamin Goldman was walking home, alone, unaware, and three men with decades of rage and pain and betrayal were following him. And Maya Reeves, who had spent 6 months trying to be normal, trying to be safe, trying to be anything other than a weapon, felt the old familiar pull. Someone was in danger. Someone who had just given her a gift, who had just reminded her that forgiveness was possible, that healing could begin, that hope existed even in darkness. She could not save Marcus, could not go back in time and make a different choice, could not undo what was done. But maybe she could save Ben. Maybe she could stop whatever was about to happen. Maybe she could prove that the training, the sacrifice, the 8 years of her life given to service, maybe it all meant something. Maybe it could still be used for good, for protection, for the right reasons instead of the orders that came from faraway places by people who did not have to live with the consequences. Maya moved through Portland streets, fast, focused, aware. Somewhere ahead, a reckoning was coming, and she would be there when it arrived. Benjamin Goldman turned the key in the lock of his jewelry shop and stepped inside. The familiar smell greeted him. Metal polish, old wood, the faint scent of coffee from this morning that he had forgotten to finish. He moved through the showroom, past display cases filled with rings and necklaces and bracelets that marked moments in other people's lives, engagements, anniversaries, births, deaths, the jewelry of memory, the physical manifestations of love and loss, and everything in between. His workshop was at the back, cluttered, organized chaos, tools that had belonged to his father-in-law, equipment that had served him for 50 years. This place was sanctuary, was purpose, was the thing that gave his days structure when Sarah died and left him alone in a world that suddenly felt too big and too empty. The safe was hidden behind a false panel in the wall, old school, analog, no digital footprint, no electronic trail, just steel and combination lock and secrets that had been buried for half a century. Ben opened it. Inside, not jewelry, not valuables, not the things a thief would expect. Documents, folders, photographs, the archives of a life lived in shadows, a life spent providing information to people who promised they would use it to save lives. To end wars, to make the world safer. They had lied. Or maybe they had believed it too. Maybe everyone involved thought they were doing the right thing, making the hard choices, sacrificing the few to save the many. But the few had names, had faces, had families who mourned them, had brothers in arms who survived and spent decades wondering why they were abandoned, why promises were broken, why America left them behind. Ben pulled out a specific folder, opened it, stared at the contents. Operation Thunderstrike, 1970. List of targets, list of assets, list of risks. And there, highlighted in yellow by his own hand all those years ago, a notation. Victor Kane, Army Special Forces, team compromised, extraction recommended. Below it, in different handwriting, different ink, different pen, extraction denied, asset priority, acceptable loss. Ben's hands shook. Not from age, from guilt, from the weight of knowing, from 50 years of carrying this knowledge and trying to convince himself it had been necessary. That war required sacrifice, that someone had to make the impossible choices, that he had just been following orders, providing information, not pulling triggers, not making policy. But it was his information, his reports, his intelligence that led them to make those choices, his words that condemned men to death and torture and abandonment. He had told himself it was not his fault, that he could not control what others did with the information he provided, that he was just a source, a tool, not the hand that wielded it. But tools had responsibility too, especially when they knew how they were being used. A sound from the front of the shop. Subtle, the creak of floorboard, the shift of weight. Ben's heart accelerated. After 80 years, you learn to recognize certain sounds, certain atmospheres, certain moments when the world shifted from safe to dangerous in the space between heartbeats. He closed the folder, placed it back in the safe, closed it, spun the combination, replaced the false panel, moved toward the workshop door. 3 men stood in his showroom, the same 3 from the cafe. No coincidence, no accident. They had followed him, had waited, had planned this. The lead man stepped forward, leaning on a cane, prosthetic leg visible now. No attempt to hide it, to hide anything. His eyes were winter storms, gray, cold, unforgiving. Eyes that had seen too much, suffered too much, survived too much. Eyes that carried death behind them and were not afraid of it anymore. Benjamin Goldman, the man said. His voice was rough, worn, like gravel underfoot. Or should I call you Mikhail Kalensky? That was your real name, wasn't it? Before you defected, before you became America's little spy, before you sold information that got good men killed. Ben's throat went dry. After 50 years, after convincing himself he was safe, that the past was buried, that no one remembered, that no one cared. He had been wrong. Who are you? Ben asked. Though he already knew, already understood, already felt the weight of consequence crashing down after half a century of delay. The man smiled. No warmth, just the baring of teeth, the expression of predator before it strikes. Colonel Victor Kane, Army Special Forces, Khe-Sanh, 1968. Captured, tortured, abandoned. Because you gave the CIA intelligence that exposed my team's position. Because they decided protecting you was more important than saving us. Because you are alive and 12 of my brothers are dead. Victor stepped closer. The other 2 men fanned out, blocking exits, cutting off escape routes. I've been looking for you for 50 years, Goldman. 50 years of wondering if you knew, if you cared, if you ever lost sleep over what you did. And now I'm here, and you're going to answer for it. You're going to face what you've done, and you're going to understand that justice delayed is not justice denied. It's just justice that arrives when you least expect it. Ben stood still, could run, could fight, could scream for help. But what would be the point? This moment had been coming since 1970. since the day he handed over those reports, since the day he chose to believe that good intelligence was worth the cost of good men. He had been wrong, and now the bill had come due. I know who you are, Ben said quietly. I know what happened to you. I have carried your name for 50 years, along with 11 others. I have carried all of you, every day, every night, every moment I drew breath, and you did not. Victor's expression did not change. Guilt is easy, he said. Guilt is cheap. Guilt is what cowards feel when they're safe and comfortable and living full lives while the men they betrayed are in the ground. I don't want your guilt, Goldman. I want your truth. I want you to look me in the eye and admit what you did. Admit that you knew, that you chose, that you valued your own life over ours. And then I want you to face the consequences. The shop door burst open. Maya Reeves stood in the doorway, no longer the quiet woman from the cafe, no longer pretending, no longer hiding what she was. Her eyes swept the room. Tactical assessment. 3 hostiles, 1 principal, multiple vectors of threat, civilian environment, collateral damage potential. Step away from him, Maya said. Her voice carried authority, command presence, the tone of someone used to being obeyed. Victor turned, studied her, saw what Ben had seen, what anyone with experience recognized. Warrior, operator, someone dangerous pretending to be safe. This doesn't concern you, young lady, Victor said. This is between me and Goldman. Old sins, old debts. Walk away and you won't get hurt. Maya did not move, did not flinch, did not show fear. That old man is under my protection. You want to hurt him, you go through me first. Victor laughed, sharp, bitter. You have no idea what you're protecting. This man is responsible for the deaths of American soldiers, for torture, for abandonment, for betrayal. You want to die defending him? Be my guest, but know what you're dying for. Maya's eyes flickered to Ben. Question in them. Is it true? Did you do what he says? Ben met her gaze, nodded slowly. No point lying, no point pretending. The truth was here, in this room, after 50 years of hiding. I was a CIA informant during the Cold War, Ben said. I provided intelligence that helped end conflicts, save lives, stop wars. But my information was also used in ways I did not control, ways that cost lives, American lives, soldiers who trusted their country to protect them, and that country chose to protect me instead. Maya's jaw tightened, but she did not move, did not lower her guard. That's war, she said. Impossible choices, command decisions. I've made them. I've lived with them. That doesn't make him a murderer. That makes him a casualty of a system that uses people and throws them away when they're no longer useful. She looked at Victor. Just like it did to you, Colonel. Just like it did to me. Just like it does to every soldier who serves and then comes home and realizes the war never ends. It just changes form, becomes guilt, becomes rage, becomes the thing that eats you from inside until you're so consumed by it that you can't see anything else, can't feel anything else, can't be anything else. Victor's expression flickered. For a moment, something other than rage showed through. Pain, recognition, the terrible understanding that she was right, that he had let bitterness become his identity, that somewhere along the way, Victor Kane, the soldier, had died and been replaced by Victor Kane, the monument to betrayal. And monuments were not alive, were not human, were just stone shaped like grief. You don't understand, Victor said, his voice quieter now, less certain. I understand perfectly, Maya replied. My teammate died because I chose to save 3 Marines instead of going back for him. I live with that every day, every hour, every breath, and I could let it destroy me, could let it turn me into something hard and cold and dead inside. Or I could honor his sacrifice by being better, by using what he gave me, by living the life he died to protect. She took a step forward, hands visible, non-threatening, but ready, always ready. You want justice, Colonel? Real justice? Then make his sacrifice mean something. Make those 12 men mean something other than just names on a list. Make their deaths count for more than just your revenge. The room was silent, tense, balanced on the edge of violence or peace, of destruction or redemption, of past consuming present or present, finally letting past rest. Victor's phone buzzed. He pulled it out. Read the message. His face paled. God damn it, he whispered. Bull moved closer. What is it? Victor looked up, at Maya, at Ben. His expression had changed. The rage was still there, but now it was mixed with something else. Fear, urgency, recognition that something larger was at play. "We've got a problem," Victor said. "Russian intelligence. They've been tracking Goldman, tracking his CIA files. They know about the documents. They know about the list of sleeper agents. And they're coming. Right now, to take them, or to destroy them, or to destroy anyone who knows about them." Maya's combat instincts flared. "How long?" "5 minutes, maybe less." Ben moved to the safe, started opening it, his hands shaking but determined. "These files," he said, "they list 47 active sleeper agents embedded in U.S. government, Congress, Pentagon, FBI. If Russian intelligence gets them back, those agents stay in place. Keep working, keep compromising national security. But if they destroy them, the agents are safe and we have no way to identify them." He pulled out the folders, looked at Victor. "You came here for justice, for revenge, for answers. I will give you all of that. But first, we have to survive the next 10 minutes. Because the past isn't just catching up with me, Colonel. It's catching up with all of us." Maya pulled out her phone, dialed Tommy. "We've got a situation, Russian operatives incoming. Need backup now. Riverside Jewelry, Morrison Street. Send everyone." She looked at Victor, at Bull, at Jake. "You served. You know tactics. You know how to fight. I need you to trust me, just for the next few minutes. Then you can go back to hating each other. But right now, we have common enemy, and they're coming through that door ready to kill everyone in this room." Victor held her gaze, calculating, weighing, deciding. Then he nodded. "All right, SEAL, we'll play it your way, for now." He turned to his men. "Bull, take the back exit. Eyes on approach. Jake, you've got the front window. Overwatch, I'll cover the side entrance. Goldman, get those files somewhere safe. If we don't make it out, make sure they get to people who can use them." Maya checked her weapon. Tactical pen in her pocket. Not much, but it would have to do. The shop door rattled. Testing, probing, preparing. Outside, engines revved. Doors slammed. Multiple vehicles. Professional operation. Well-funded, well-trained. Ben finished securing the files, looked at Maya. "I'm sorry you got dragged into this." Maya smiled. Grim, determined. "I've been looking for a reason to care again. Guess the universe just handed me one." The door exploded inward. Not kicked. Breached. Explosive charge. Professional entry. 4 men in tactical gear poured through. Weapons up. Night vision goggles despite the fading daylight. Every advantage. Every preparation. Maya moved. Not away from danger. Toward it. Because that was what she was trained to do. That was who she was. That was the purpose she had been searching for. And in that moment, surrounded by enemies and unlikely allies and an old man whose sins had finally caught up with him, Maya Reeves stopped running from her past and stepped back into who she had always been. A guardian, a protector, a warrior. And the fight had just begun. The first Russian operative through the door died before he understood his mistake. Maya moved with the precision of 8 years training compressed into 2 seconds of action. The tactical pen in her hand became something else. A weapon. An extension of will transformed into violence. She struck the pressure point below his jawline. The mercenary's weapon clattered to the floor. His knees buckled. Victor Kane was already moving. Despite the prosthetic leg, despite being 68 years old, despite 50 years removed from combat, some things the body never forgot. Some reflexes remained buried in muscle memory, waiting for the moment they were needed again. He grabbed the fallen weapon. A suppressed MP, German engineering, professional grade. Not street criminals, not amateurs. These were trained operators backed by serious money and serious intent. Bull Morrison took position behind the jewelry counter, his bulk providing cover, his hands steady despite the decades since Vietnam. Some men were born for this, born to stand and fight when everything said run, born to protect when instinct said survive. Bull was one of those men, always had been, always would be until the day he stopped breathing. The second operative came through fast, textbook room clearing, high and tight, scanning for targets, finding them. Maya was already there, inside his guard before he could acquire. She redirected his weapon. Up, away. The burst went into the ceiling. Plaster dust rained down. She drove her knee into his midsection, used his momentum against him. Judo throw that sent him crashing into the display case. Glass exploded. Diamonds and emeralds scattered across the floor like stars fallen to earth. Jake Morrison had disappeared. Not fled, repositioned. Bull's nephew. The Iraq veteran who understood modern warfare better than the older generation. He appeared at the side entrance, weapon ready, covering the approach. 2 more vehicles outside, he called. At least 8 more hostiles, maybe 10. We're outnumbered and outgunned. Victor fired. 3-round burst. Professional. Controlled. The 3rd Russian went down. Wounded, not dead. Victor had not lost his touch. Had not forgotten how to put rounds on target under pressure. But his breathing was labored. His legs screamed. The prosthetic not designed for this kind of stress. Not built for combat. Built for walking slowly through peaceful streets in a country that no longer needed him to fight. Benjamin Goldman stood frozen behind the counter, the safe folder clutched to his chest. 80 years old, survived Auschwitz, survived the Cold War, survived 5 decades of guilt and grief and growing old. But this was different. This was violence he had only witnessed secondhand, through reports, through intelligence summaries, through the sanitized language that made death into acceptable losses and torture into enhanced interrogation. Maya grabbed him, pulled him down behind cover. Stay low, stay quiet. When I say move, you move. Understand? Ben nodded, his hands shaking but his eyes clear. Fear was not the same as panic. He had learned that at 6 years old, hiding in corpses while Nazi soldiers searched for survivors. Fear was healthy. Fear kept you alive. Panic got you killed. The 4th Russian came through. Then the 5th. They were not rushing anymore, not making mistakes. They had assessed, calculated, realized this was not going to be easy. That whoever was inside knew what they were doing, that this required different tactics, more patience, more care. A canister rolled through the door, gray, cylindrical, hissing. Grenade, Bull shouted. Not explosive. Wow. Tear gas or worse. In this enclosed space, it would fill the room in seconds. Blind them, choke them, make them easy targets stumbling toward exits. Victor acted without thinking. Grabbed the canister, threw it back through the broken door. His shoulder protested. Old injury from caisson flaring. But he ignored it. Pain was temporary. Death was permanent. He knew the difference. The explosion came from outside. Screams, confusion. The grenade had landed among the attackers, their own weapon used against them. Maya pulled Ben toward the back room, toward his workshop, toward any exit that did not involve going through the front where the Russians had concentrated their force. The back door leads to an alley, Ben said, his voice surprisingly steady. There's a fire escape, leads to the roof. From there we can reach the building next door. Victor heard, nodded. Combat leaders learn to listen to local knowledge, to use terrain, to adapt and overcome. The rigid died. The flexible survived. Bull, Jake, we're moving. Cover and bound. Textbook. They moved. Maya had Ben. Victor and Bull provided suppressing fire. Not to kill, to create hesitation, to make the enemy think twice before advancing, to buy seconds that became minutes that became survival. Jake reached the back door first. Checked. Clear. He slipped through, weapon up, scanning the alley. Dark, narrow, dumpsters and fire escapes and the smell of old rain on concrete. Maya pushed Ben through, gentle but firm. The old man moved surprisingly well. Adrenaline was a hell of a drug, made the body remember what it could do when survival was the only option that mattered. Bulga came next, then Victor, limping now. The prosthetic had taken damage, hydraulics compromised, but he kept moving, kept fighting, kept being what he had always been, a soldier, a warrior, a man who did not quit even when quitting made sense. Behind them, shouts in Russian, orders being given, reorganization. They would come, would pursue, would not give up, not when the prize was worth millions, not when their employer had paid for results, not when failure meant consequences worse than death. The fire escape groaned under their weight. Old metal, rusted joints, but it held. They climbed, Maya in the lead, Ben behind her, the others covering the rear. Moving up into the Portland evening as darkness settled over the city like a shroud. Gunfire erupted from below. Sparks where bullets hit metal, the sharp crack of rounds passing close, too close. Maya felt the wind of one pass her ear. 6 inches to the left and she would be done. would be another casualty, another name on a list, another person who survived war only to die on a quiet Thursday in a city that was supposed to be safe. They reached the roof, flat, covered in gravel and old HVAC units. The building next door was 10 feet away. A gap, a jump. Not difficult for Maya, potentially fatal for Ben. She looked at the old man, saw him calculating, saw the same thing she saw. The distance, the risk, the choice. I can make it, Ben said. You sure? I survived Auschwitz. I can survive this. Victor appeared at the roof access, his face pale, breathing hard. The prosthetic was failing, sparking, making sounds that suggested imminent mechanical failure. We've got maybe 2 minutes before they're up here, he said. We need to move, now. Maya went first, ran, jumped, landed on the adjacent roof. Solid, safe. She turned, reached out. Ben, come on. The old man backed up, gave himself running room. At 80 years old, he was preparing to jump between buildings, to risk everything, to choose action over paralysis, to refuse to be victim even when every rational part of his brain screamed that this was insane. He ran. For a man his age, it was slow, shuffling, the kind of run that young people did not even recognize as running. But he moved, he reached the edge, he jumped. Time dilated, stretched, the way it did in combat, in car accidents, in moments when the brain processed too much information too fast and made seconds feel like hours. Ben was airborne, arms windmilling, gravity pulling, the gap between buildings suddenly looking much wider than 10 feet, looking like the distance between safety and death. Maya leaned out, grabbed, caught his wrist. His weight jerked her forward. She braced, held, pulled. Bull appeared beside her, added his strength. Between them, they hauled Ben up, over the edge, onto solid roofing. Ben lay there gasping, not hurt, just spent. The adrenaline fading, the reality of what he had just done settling in. At his age, with his body, he had jumped between buildings like some kind of action hero, like someone who had not earned the right to slow down, to be safe, to avoid risk. Victor made the jump. Barely. The prosthetic gave out on landing. Hydraulics failed completely. He collapsed. Bull caught him, steadied him. I'm done, Victor said, not giving up, just stating fact. I can't run anymore, not on this leg, not like this. Jake was last. He jumped, landed, turned back. The Russians were coming up the fire escape, 4 of them, armed, professional, relentless. We need to split up, Victor said. Divide their attention. Make them choose. Maya shook her head. We stay together. We're stronger together. And we need to get Ben somewhere safe, somewhere we can regroup. Call in backup, end this properly. Victor looked at her, really looked. Saw the leadership, the command presence, the thing that made good officers and bad ones. The ability to make decisions under pressure and have people trust those decisions even when they did not make sense. All right, SEAL, what's the plan? Maya was already moving, helping Ben to his feet, scanning the roofline, looking for options, for routes, for anything that gave them tactical advantage. There's a church 3 blocks from here, St. Michael's. I've been there, old building, stone construction, multiple exits, good defensive position. We can hold there until Portland PD arrives. She looked at Jake. How long? Tommy Chen said 10 minutes. That was 5 minutes ago. So 5 more, maybe less if they're running hot. 5 minutes, 300 seconds. A lifetime in combat, an eternity when enemies were hunting you, when every moment meant life or death, when the difference between surviving and dying came down to decisions made in fractions of seconds. They moved across rooftops, slower now. Victor was a liability, the prosthetic, completely non-functional. He hopped on one leg, Bull supporting him. 2 old Vietnam veterans moving through darkness while Russian mercenaries pursued. Behind them, shouts, movement, the enemy adapting, splitting up, some following across roofs, others going down to street level, cutting off escape routes, herding them toward wherever they wanted them to go. Maya realized the problem. They were being corralled, directed. The Russians were not just chasing, they were guiding, pushing them toward a specific location, toward a kill box, toward the place where the trap would spring. She stopped, held up her hand, the others halted. We're being played, she said. They want us to run, want us to go where they expect. We need to do the opposite. Victor's eyes narrowed. Then he smiled, grim, appreciative. Ambush the ambush. I like it. What did you have in mind? Maya looked around, assessed, calculated, saw what they had, what they could use, what advantages remained. We hole up here, make them come to us, use elevation, use cover, make them fight on our terms instead of theirs. 5 minutes until backup, Bull reminded. Can we hold 5 minutes? We held longer in worse places, Victor said. Quezon, the Hilton. Compared to those, 5 minutes is a vacation. They moved to the roof access of the building they were on, an old apartment complex, 4 stories, roof access through a metal door, heavy, industrial, defensible. Jake checked it, locked. He pulled out tools, began working. Lock-picking was a skill, one he had learned in Iraq clearing houses. Sometimes you needed to get through doors quietly, sometimes loud was not an option. The lock clicked. The door opened. They descended into darkness. A stairwell. Concrete. Echo. The kind of space that amplified sound and created confusion. Good for defense, bad for attack. Maya positioned them. Victor and Bull at the top of the stairs. Good sight lines, good fields of fire. Jake halfway down, mobile, able to respond to threats from multiple directions. Ben in the back, protected, hidden. The principle they were all guarding, whether they admitted it or not. They waited. Silence was a weapon. So was patience. Good soldiers learned to endure discomfort, to stay alert while nothing happened, to maintain readiness even when readiness seemed unnecessary. Maya's breathing slowed, controlled, the way she had been taught, the way that kept heart rate down, kept hands steady, kept mind clear. She thought about Marcus, about Kandahar, about the choice she made, the choice that haunted her, the choice that brought her to this moment, to this stairwell, to this mission that was not a mission, but something else, something personal, something that mattered beyond tactics and strategy and objective completion. The sound of boots on stairs, below them, careful, professional, the enemy was here. Victor raised his weapon, aimed, waited for Maya's signal, because without words, without discussion, without formal command structure, she had become leader. And good soldiers followed good leaders even when those leaders were young, were different, were not what they expected. Maya raised her hand. 3 fingers. Count. Coordination. Timing. 3, 2, 1. She dropped her hand. Victor fired. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space, concrete amplifying, making thunder from gunfire. The lead Russian went down. The ones behind scrambled for cover, returned fire, muzzle flashes in darkness, bullets sparking off concrete, ricochets screaming through confined space. Jake moved, flanking, using his position halfway down to attack from an unexpected angle. 2 quick shots, another enemy down. Bull was methodical, patient. He had learned in Vietnam that panic killed, that rushing killed, that steady pressure and careful aim won firefights. He fired, 1 round, 1 target, shifted, fired again. The Russians pulled back, regrouped. They had expected easy targets, civilians running scared. Instead, they had walked into prepared defenders, trained operators, people who knew what they were doing. Voices in Russian, calling to each other, reassessing, calculating, deciding whether this was worth the casualties, whether the intelligence was worth dying for. A canister rolled up the stairs. Same gray cylinder, same hissing sound. Gas, Maya shouted. No time to throw it back. No time to escape. They would have to endure, have to fight through it, have to win before the chemicals incapacitated them. The gas filled the stairwell, thick, choking, not tear gas, something worse. CS gas, military grade, the kind that burned lungs and blinded eyes and made breathing feel like drowning. Maya pulled her shirt over her nose. Inadequate protection, but better than nothing. She grabbed Ben, pulled him close, tried to shield him from the worst of it. Victor was coughing, wheezing. His damaged lungs from torture and age could not handle this. He slumped against the wall, weapon shaking in his hands. Bull moved to help him, but his own eyes were streaming, his throat closing. Strong as he was, big as he was, chemistry did not care about size, about strength, about will. It just worked, relentlessly, inevitably. Jake had a bandana, wet from earlier rain. He tied it over his face, moved through the bow, returned fire, keeping the Russians from advancing while his team tried to recover. Maya's eyes burned. Her throat screamed. But she had been through this before. In training, in combat, she knew the only way through was through. That stopping meant dying. That the pain was temporary, but death was permanent. She fired blind, down the stairs, not aiming, just creating noise, creating threat, creating the impression that they were still dangerous, still capable, still fighting. Sirens. Outside, growing closer. The sound of Portland PD responding, of backup arriving, of the cavalry finally coming over the hill. The Russians heard it too, another shouted conversation, then footsteps, retreating, running. They had failed, had lost too many, had encountered too much resistance, and now the police were coming. Time to abort, time to escape, time to try again another day. Maya kept her weapon up, waiting, making sure it was not a trick, not a feint, not a setup for final assault. The gas began to dissipate, slowly, rising toward the roof access they had left open. Fresh air replacing poison, life replacing death. Victor was on his knees, gasping, his face red, his lungs working overtime, but alive, still fighting, still refusing to quit. Bull helped him up, steadied him, two old warriors holding each other, veterans of a war most Americans wanted to forget, brothers forged in jungles, in prison camps, and the bitter homecoming that waited after. Jake descended the stairs, weapon ready, checking bodies, confirming kills, securing the area, doing what soldiers did, what they were trained to do, what kept them alive when everything tried to kill them. Maya held Ben. The old man was shaking, not from fear, from exhaustion, from adrenaline crash, from the weight of everything that had just happened, everything that was still happening, everything that would not end until someone stopped it permanently. Police poured into the building. Flashlights, shouted commands, weapons drawn. They found the scene, the bodies, the gas, the defenders who had held until they arrived. Detective Tommy Chen appeared, his face grim. He saw Maya, saw the others, saw the carnage. Jesus Christ, Maya, what the hell happened here? She lowered her weapon, safed it, handed it over, cooperating, not fleeing, not hiding, not pretending this was anything other than what it was. A battle, a fight, a moment when choices had to be made and consequences had to be accepted. Russian intelligence, she said, her voice hoarse from the gas. After Cold War documents, they tried to breach Ben's shop. We defended, we survived. They didn't. Tommy looked at Victor, at Bull, at Jake. Recognition in his eyes. He had run their IDs while responding, knew who they were, what they had come here to do. The vendetta, the reckoning, the 50-year-old wound that had finally torn open and bled. You three are supposed to be the bad guys in this story, Tommy said to Victor. Victor smiled, bitter, exhausted. Funny how perspective changes when you're getting shot at by the same people. Enemy of my enemy and all that. Paramedics arrived, checking vitals, treating injuries, the gas exposure, the cuts, the bruises, the toll of violence on bodies not designed for it anymore. Ben sat on the stairs, the folder still clutched to his chest, the documents that had caused all this, the intelligence that had cost lives 50 years ago and nearly cost more today, the weight of history, the burden of choices, the price of survival. Maya sat beside him. Neither spoke. Words felt inadequate, insufficient. How did you process what had just happened? How did you make sense of violence and mercy and enemies becoming allies and the past refusing to stay buried? Emma Rodriguez appeared at the top of the stairwell, not in her barista apron, in FBI tactical gear, Kevlar vest, service weapon, badge clipped to her belt. Her face was different, harder, professional. The innocent young woman from the café replaced by something else, someone who had been playing a role. Maya stood slowly, stared, processing. Emma? The young woman met her eyes, apologetic, resolute. Special Agent Emily Voss, FBI Counterintelligence. I've been undercover at Riverside Cafe for 6 months monitoring Benjamin Goldman. We knew Russian intelligence was planning something. We just didn't know when, or how, or who else would be involved. Maya felt betrayed. The connection she thought they had, the innocence she had admired. All of it a lie, an act, A performance designed to gather intelligence. You knew, Maya said quietly. You knew they were coming. You knew Ben was in danger. You could have warned him, protected him. Instead, you used him as bait. Emma shook her head. We didn't know the timeline. Didn't know Victor Kane's crew was also targeting him. Didn't know you would intervene. The operation was compromised from the beginning. But we made the best of it, and everyone survived. That's what matters. Victor limped forward, studied Emma with new understanding. You called Father O'Brien during the gas attack. How did you know to do that? Emergency protocol. When operations go sideways, we have civilian contacts who can provide support. Father O'Brien is one of them, former military chaplain. Trusted, vetted, he's helped us before. She looked at each of them, at Maya, at Victor, at Bull, at Jake, at Ben. I'm sorry I deceived you, all of you, but this was bigger than any one person. 47 Russian sleeper agents embedded in our government, some in positions of significant power. If those files had been destroyed or taken, we would have lost our only chance to identify them, to root them out, to protect national security. Tommy Chen put his hand on Maya's shoulder. She's right. As much as it sucks, this was necessary, and it worked. We've got the files, we've got Russian operatives in custody, and everyone on our side made it out alive. That's a win. Maya was quiet, processing, feeling manipulated, but also understanding. She had been in intelligence operations, had run missions where civilians were assets, where deception was necessary, where the ends justified the means because the alternative was worse. She looked at Ben. The old man was watching Emma with something like admiration, not anger, not betrayal, understanding. You were protecting me, Ben said, all this time, making sure I was safe, making sure the files were secure. You're just like Sarah was, kind on the surface, steel underneath. Emma's expression softened slightly. Your wife was a remarkable woman, Mr. Goldman. I read her file, what she did during the Cold War, how she supported you, how she kept your secrets, and carried that weight. She was a patriot, just like you. Victor spoke, his voice raw from gas but steady with purpose. I came here to kill you, Goldman, to make you pay for what you did, to make you understand what it could. But this changes things. We fought together, bled together, survived together. That means something. To me, maybe to you. Ben nodded, slow, tired. It does, more than you know. Victor continued. But I need to tell you something. Something you should know. About why this was personal. Why I couldn't let it go. Why I've spent 50 years carrying this rage. He paused, gathering himself, the words difficult, painful, necessary. One of the 12 men on my team, Sergeant Marcus Reyes, he was transferred to your SEAL team after Vietnam, did inter-service training, became instructor. He talked about a young female officer he trained, someone special, someone who reminded him of why we serve. He said her name was Maya. Maya's blood ran cold. The world tilted. Impossible. Could not be. And yet, Marcus Reyes was in your team, she whispered. He was my brother, Victor said. Simple, direct, true. Not by blood, by choice, by experience, by the bonds forged in combat. When he died in Kandahar 6 years ago, I looked into it, found out what happened, found out you were there, found out you made the choice. Save 3 Marines or go back for him, and I understood, because it was the same choice I had made, the same math, the same impossible decision. He looked at Ben. Your intelligence got my first brothers killed, and then the system that used your intelligence put Marcus in position to die protecting others. Different wars, different circumstances, same result. Good men dead, and shame. And I'm still here, still carrying them, still trying to understand why. Maya sat down hard. Legs would not support her. Marcus, Victor's brother. The connection she never knew existed. The bond that linked them across decades in wars and the random chaos of military service. He never mentioned you, Maya said. Marcus never talked about Vietnam, never talked about his past. Just focused on training, on making us better, on preparing us for what was coming. That was Marcus, Victor said. Always forward, never back. He made peace with Vietnam in a way I never could. Made peace with the choices, the losses, the weight. He taught me that before he transferred out. Tried to anyway. I wasn't ready to listen. Wasn't ready to let go. And by the time I was ready, he was gone. dead in a war I wasn't even part of, protecting people I didn't know, making the same sacrifice I saw others make 50 years before. Victor moved to Maya, sat beside her, two warriors connected by person they both loved, both lost, both carried. I blamed you, Victor said. When I found out, I blamed you for leaving him, for making the choice, for surviving when he didn't. But that was wrong. That was my rage looking for target, my pain looking for someone to punish. You made the right call, the only call. Marcus would have done the same thing, would have wanted you to do the same thing, would have been proud that his training prepared you to make hard choice and live with it. Maya wept, not quietly, not with dignity, but with the raw, ugly sound of grief finally released after 6 years of captivity. For Marcus, for Victor's 12 brothers, for every soldier who died protecting others, for every choice made under pressure, for every consequence carried forward. Bull appeared, placed hand on Victor's shoulder. Silent support. Emma knelt beside Maya, no longer FBI agent, just human being witnessing pain. I'm sorry, Emma said, for deceiving you, for using the situation, for making you think I was just barista when I was running operation. You deserve better. Maya looked up, eyes red, face streaked. You did your job, protected your asset, ran your operation. That's what we're trained to do, what we're supposed to do. Use every advantage, every deception, every tool to complete mission, to protect national security. I've done it. I understand it. I just hate being on receiving end of it. Ben stood slowly, walked to Victor and Maya, placed his hands on both their shoulders. Marcus Reyes, he said, I did not know him, did not know the connection. But I know this. He served honorably, died protecting others. And his memory lives in both of you, in your strength, your courage, your willingness to face hard truths and carry heavy weights. That's legacy. That's immortality. Not living forever, but mattering always. Father O'Brien appeared at the stairwell entrance, still in the clothes he had been wearing earlier. Not tactical gear, just simple priest in simple collar. But his presence changed the atmosphere, brought calm, brought grace, brought the possibility that this could end in something other than more violence, more pain, more death. I heard there was trouble, he said. His voice was steady, peaceful. I thought you might need someone to talk to pray with, to remind you that forgiveness is possible even when it seems impossible. Victor looked at the priest, recognition in his eyes of someone who had been there, who had seen what he had seen, who understood what words could not express. Father, we could use your wisdom. I think you already have wisdom, O'Brien replied. You just needed circumstances to reveal it, to force you to see what was always there. That rage destroys, that forgiveness heals, that love is stronger than hate if you give it chance. He looked around the stairwell, at the defenders, at the bodies, at the evidence of violence and survival. Let us pray for the dead, for the living, for those who carry weight, and for strength to choose healing over hurting. Redemption over revenge, tomorrow over yesterday. They bowed heads, believers and doubters, soldiers and civilians, old and young, connected by shared experience, by survival, by recognition that they were part of something larger than themselves, part of story that started before them and would continue after, part of human struggle to be better than circumstances suggested was possible. Father O'Brien spoke words, simple, profound, about mercy and grace and the possibility that broken people could be healed if they allowed it, if they stopped fighting, if they surrendered to something larger than pride and pain and the stubborn insistence that they had to carry everything alone. When he finished, the stairwell was quiet, not empty, never empty, but peaceful, the kind of peace that comes after storm, after battle, after a moment when everything could have gone wrong but somehow went right. Sirens faded, paramedics finished their work. Police secured the scene, the machinery of aftermath grinding into motion. But in that moment, in that space, 7 people sat together, former enemies, current allies, people who had survived something impossible and came out changed, not healed, not yet, but beginning, starting, taking first steps toward whatever came next. Maya looked at Victor. Victor looked at Ben. Ben looked at Emma. Emma looked at them all, understanding passing between them. Acknowledgement, recognition. They had been through fire, had been tested, had survived, and in surviving had found something they did not know they were looking for. Connection, purpose, the knowledge that they were not alone, that weight could be shared, that healing was possible, that tomorrow could be different than yesterday if people chose to make it so. It was not resolution, not yet. There would be investigations, trials, bureaucracy, consequences, the machinery of justice grinding slowly toward whatever passed for fairness. But it was beginning, the first step, the crack in the wall, the moment when healing became possible even if not certain. And for men and women who had lived through wars, external and internal, for warriors who had survived battles against enemies and themselves, for souls tired of fighting but not knowing how to stop, it was enough. For now, it was enough. The FBI field office in Portland smelled like burnt coffee and bureaucracy. Maya sat in a gray room with gray furniture answering questions from agents who had flown in from Seattle and D.C. Same questions, different phrasing, the dance of debrief, the ritual of making sure stories aligned, details matched, truth could be verified. Agent Sarah Kim sat across from her, 40s, sharp, professional, the kind of federal investigator who had seen enough to know when people were lying and when they were just tired. Maya was tired, bone deep, soul exhausted, the kind of fatigue that sleep could not fix because it was not physical. It was spiritual, the weight of violence, of choices, of consequences. Walk me through it one more time, Agent Kim said. Not hostile, just thorough. The moment you decided to intervene, Maya closed her eyes, saw it again. Ben sitting in the cafe, the three men entering. The shift in atmosphere, the instinct that screamed danger. I saw a threat. I responded. That's what I was trained to do. You're retired. Civilian, you had no obligation to engage. I had every obligation. I'm a human being. I saw someone in danger. I acted. Military training gave me capability. Humanity gave me obligation. Agent Kim made notes, nodded. She understood. Not everyone would, but she had been in the field, had made hard calls, had learned that right and wrong were sometimes clear and sometimes blurred, and sometimes the same action could be both simultaneously. The documents Benjamin Goldman possessed, we've analyzed them, 47 names, all confirmed active, some in very sensitive positions. This is the biggest counterintelligence breakthrough in decades. You helped make that possible. Ben made that possible by keeping them, by being willing to face consequences, by choosing to do right thing even when it cost him everything. Agent Kim's expression softened slightly. He's in Providence Hospital, under guard, but stable. His son is with him now. Maya nodded, grateful. At least Ben would have time. Time to make peace. Time to say goodbye. Time to finish what needed finishing. There's one more thing, Agent Kim said. The Russian operatives. They're not done. We intercepted communications. They're planning another attempt, not on Goldman directly, but on the funeral. They know it will be public, know that everyone will be gathered. They see it as opportunity. Maya's combat readiness returned, sharp, focused. When? Tomorrow, 2 p.m., Temple Beth, Israel, public service announced in newspapers. Easy to find, easy to attack. Then we don't have it there. We move it, change location. Agent Kim shook her head. We use it as trap. Let them come. Be ready. End this permanently. The planning session lasted 3 hours. FBI tactical team, Portland SWAT, Maya, Victor, Tommy Chen, Father O'Brien, everyone who had earned right to be at the table. Everyone who had survived the first attack and understood what was at stake. The plan was simple in concept, complicated in execution. Public funeral at Temple Beth, Israel. Announced, advertised, open to press and public. But Benjamin Goldman would not be there. Neither would his family. Neither would anyone the Russians actually wanted to target. Instead, Father O'Brien would play Ben. Makeup, prosthetics, similar build, similar age. Close enough to fool surveillance from distance. The real funeral would happen simultaneously at an undisclosed location. Private, secure, just the people who mattered. The people who had earned the right to say goodbye. It's risky, Tommy Chen said. Put civilians in danger. Father O'Brien most of all. The priest smiled, calm, accepting. I've been in danger before. Vietnam, firefights, mortars. I survived then. If I don't survive now, well, I'm 72. I've lived full life. And if my death protects those trying to make peace, that's good death. That's death with meaning. Victor studied the priest, respect in his eyes. Father, you're either bravest man I've ever met or craziest. Can it be both? They laughed, tension breaking slightly, the gallows humor that soldiers understood. That helped them face impossible situations. That made bearable what should be unbearable. Agent Kim pulled up tactical maps, temple layout, sight lines, entry points, escape routes. We'll have snipers on surrounding buildings, SWAT inside posing as mourners, undercover agents as press. The moment they make their move, we close the trap. Fast, clean, minimal casualties. Assuming they take the bait, Maya said. They will. They're professional, but they're also desperate. This is their last chance. They've lost men, lost face, lost their shot at the documents. They need a win, need to salvage something from this disaster. They'll come. The meeting dispersed, each person to their assignment, each piece moving into position, the machinery of operation humming into life. Maya found herself outside. Night air, Portland quiet except for traffic. Normal people living normal lives. Unaware that tomorrow their city would be battleground. That violence would erupt in sacred space. That people would risk everything to protect secrets and honor dead and finish what should have ended 50 years ago. Victor appeared beside her, leaning on cane, prosthetic replaced with temporary one, functional but not comfortable. He would need surgery eventually, but that could wait. First this, first closure, first peace. You okay? He asked. I don't know. Are you? No, but I'm better than I was, better than I've been in 50 years, so that's progress. They stood in silence, two warriors who had found each other through violence and stayed connected through understanding, through shared loss, through Marcus, through the recognition that they were not alone in carrying weight. He would be proud of you, Victor said. Marcus, of what you've become, what you're building, how you're using what he taught you. He always said the best operators became teachers, became leaders, became the ones who made everyone around them better. You're doing that. You're living his legacy. I'm trying. Some days it feels impossible, like I'm failing him, like I'm not doing enough. That feeling never goes away. Trust me. 50 years and I still feel like I'm failing my brothers. But Emma said something that helped. That legacy isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up, about trying, about making tomorrow slightly better than yesterday. That's enough. That has to be enough, because it's all we can do. Maya nodded, understanding. The weight would always be there, but maybe it could be carried differently. Maybe it could be shared. Maybe it could become strength instead of burden. Foundation instead of prison. Get some rest, Victor said. Tomorrow's going to be hard. Different kind of hard, but still hard. He limped away. Back to hotel where Bull and Jake waited. Back to whatever peace old soldiers found in darkness when demons visited. Maya returned to her apartment, small, functional, home. She sat at her desk, looked at photos. Ben, Victor, Bull, Jake, Tommy, Emma, Father O'Brien, all of them together, unlikely family. Chosen tribe. Besides it, Marcus's dog tags, her Navy cross, the Star of David necklace. Reminders of who she was, where she came from, what she carried. She touched the necklace. Ben's gift, Sarah's legacy, the symbol that hope existed even in darkness. Tomorrow they would say goodbye to man who survived Auschwitz and lived 80 years carrying weight of choices made under impossible circumstances. Man who chose redemption over resignation, who gave everything he had to families of men he helped kill, who jumped between buildings at 80 years old because he refused to be victim, who taught her that survivor's guilt could become purpose, that carrying dead did not mean being crushed by them. She would honor him by being there, by protecting his family, by making sure his final act meant something, by continuing work he started, by being guardian for next person who needed one. That was legacy. That was immortality. Not living forever, but mattering always. She closed her eyes, let exhaustion take her. Tomorrow would come soon enough. Temple Beth, Israel, at 2 p.m. was theater-worthy of Hollywood. Hundreds of mourners, pressed with cameras, flowers in remembrance, and all the trappings of public grief. Father O'Brien sat in the front row, prosthetics making him look 20 years older. Makeup artists had done incredible work. From distance, he was Benjamin Goldman. Close up, the illusion held. Good enough, professional enough. Rabbi Sarah Greenfield conducted service. She knew it was trap, knew the body in the casket was weighted prop, knew that everyone present was either FBI agent or potential target. But she performed anyway, with dignity, with grace, with the gravity that death demanded, even when death was illusion. Maya watched from van 2 blocks away. Tactical command center, screens showing feeds from dozen cameras. Snipers checking in, SWAT positioned, undercover agents ready. Agent Kim stood beside her, headset, coordinating, the spider at center of web, feeling for vibration that meant prey had arrived. Victor was there too, against doctor's orders, against common sense, but present, because some things you needed to witness, some operations you needed to see through, some endings you needed to be part of. Movement, Sniper 1 reported. 3 vehicles, 2 blocks south, 6 occupants, armed, military bearing. Hold position, Agent Kim ordered. Let them commit. Let them enter the trap. The vehicles parked. Men emerged. Professional, careful, scanning surroundings, looking for ambush, for setup, for anything that suggested this was not what it appeared. They saw mourners, saw press, saw normal people doing normal things in normal grief. They saw what they wanted to see, what they needed to see, what desperation made them believe. They moved toward temple, weapons concealed, blending with crowd, professional infiltration, textbook approach. They're inside, Agent Kim said. All units stand by, wait for my signal. The Russian team moved through temple, heading toward front, toward Father O'Brien, toward the man they thought was Benjamin Goldman, toward their target, their objective, their chance to salvage mission and return home with something to show for losses. They were 10 feet away when Agent Kim gave order. Execute, execute, execute. SWAT emerged from pews, from side doors, from positions throughout temple, weapons up, shouting commands, professional takedown, overwhelming force, no escape, no chance, no mercy. The Russians froze, calculating, assessing, realizing they had been played, that this was trap, that Goldman was not here, that they had walked into ambush orchestrated by people who knew exactly what they were doing. The leader reached for weapon. Bad choice, fatal choice. 3 shots, center mass, professional marksmanship. He went down. The others surrendered, smart, survival over pride, lived to fight another day even if that day was decades away in maximum security prison. It was over in 30 seconds. No civilian casualties, no collateral damage, clean operation, perfect execution. Father O'Brien stood, removed prosthetics, smiled at the Russians being zip-tied and searched. God forgives all sins, he said, even yours, but earthly justice is separate matter. Good luck, gentlemen. Agent Kim's voice came through calm. Package secured. All units stand down. Operation successful. Maya felt tension drain. Relief. It was done. Really done. No more threats. No more attacks. No more looking over shoulders. Ben could be buried in peace. His family could grieve without fear. Victor could begin healing without wondering if vengeance would find him. It was done. The real funeral happened 2 hours later. Small chapel in hills outside Portland. 20 people. No press. No publicity. Just those who had earned right to be there through blood and tears and shared struggle. Benjamin Goldman's casket rested at front. Simple. Jewish tradition. Plain wood. No ostentation. Just final rest for man who survived too much and carried too long and finally found peace. David Goldman stood to speak first. His voice shook but held. My father was complicated man. Survivor, spy, jeweler, husband, father. He made choices I didn't understand, carried weight I couldn't see, lived with guilt I couldn't comprehend. But he loved deeply, sacrificed willingly. And in his final days, he chose redemption over resentment, healing over hiding. That's how I'll remember him. Not perfect, but trying, always trying to be better. He placed stone on casket, Jewish tradition, symbol of permanence, of memory. Victor Kane spoke next, dressed in his old army uniform, ribbons and medals earned over a career that cost everything. His voice was stronger than expected, clearer, the voice of man who had laid down burden. Benjamin Goldman got my brothers killed. That's fact. That's history. But he also gave his life savings to their families, gave his final days to making peace, gave me opportunity to choose forgiveness over vengeance. I don't know if I've fully forgiven, but I'm trying. And that's more than I thought possible. Thank you, Goldman, for teaching old dog new tricks, for showing it's never too late, for reminding me hatred is choice, and so is healing. Bull Morrison, Jake Morrison, Tommy Chen, Emily Voss, each spoke, each shared what Ben had meant. Small stories, personal moments. The accumulation of life measured not in years but in impact. Maya spoke last. I knew Benjamin Goldman for 8 days, but those 8 days changed my life. He taught me survivor's guilt doesn't have to be prison. That carrying dead doesn't mean being crushed by them. That purpose comes from accepting who you are and using what you have for something worth serving. Thank you, Ben, for seeing me, for saving me, for giving me reason to care again. She placed Star of David necklace on casket, returning gift, giving it back to man who gave it. Father O'Brien said prayers, multiple traditions, words that honored all paths, all faiths, all ways of seeking meaning and mystery. They buried Benjamin Goldman on hillside overlooking Portland, city where he built business, raised son, lost wife, found redemption, simple stone, name, dates, and underneath. He tried. 2 words, but they said everything. David stood longest at graveside. Maya stayed with him, silent support. He left me letter, David said finally, to be opened after burial. Do you want to hear it? Maya nodded. David read aloud. Ben's handwriting. Last words of dying man to son he loved. My David, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Hopefully I died having made peace with Victor, with my choices, with the weight. You were best thing I ever did. Not the business, not the intelligence work, not surviving Auschwitz. You, your life, your happiness. That's my legacy. That's what mattered. I made mistakes, got people killed, carried guilt I should have shared. Let secrets poison our relationship. For that, I'm sorry. But I learned something in final days. Something Maya taught me. Something Victor showed me. Something Father O'Brien preached and Emily embodied. It's never too late. Never too late to make things right, to seek forgiveness, to offer grace, to choose healing over hatred, to build bridges instead of walls. I leave you money, not much after families are paid, but enough. More importantly, I leave you lesson. Life is not about being perfect. It's about being present, showing up, trying, and never giving up on people you love, even when distance grows and understanding fails. I love you, son. Be better than me, but also be kinder to yourself than I was to myself. Forgive your mistakes, learn from them, grow, heal, live. Your father, Benjamin. David wept. Maya held him. Let him grieve. Let him release. May I? 6 weeks later, different city, different coast, same mission. Maya and Victor stood in Washington, D.C. Vietnam Veterans Memorial. The wall, black granite reflecting faces of living and dead, names of 58,000 who never came home. Today was special ceremony, adding 12 names. Victor's team from Quezon, finally recognized, finally honored, finally remembered officially instead of just privately. Families were there, widows now in their 70s, children now middle-aged, grandchildren who never knew the men but carried their names and their stories. Victor had contacted each family personally, visited them, told them truth about Operation Thunderstrike, about the ambush, about Ben's role, about the 50-year journey to this moment, and he brought them checks, $100,000 each. Ben's money, Ben's attempt at redemption, Ben's way of saying their sacrifice mattered. Maya watched as Victor presented checks to widow of Sergeant James Martinez, 74 years old, small, frail, but fierce. She took the check, read it, looked at Victor. Why, she asked, why now? Why this money? Because a man named Benjamin Goldman carried guilt for 50 years, Victor said. Because he couldn't bring your husband back, but he could try to honor his memory. Because he wanted your grandchildren to have opportunities. Because he believed it's never too late to make things right. The widow wept, held the check to her chest, looked at the wall where her husband's name was carved. James would have liked that, she said. He always believed in redemption, in second chances, in forgiveness. Tell this Goldman man, tell him we forgive. Tell him we understand. Tell him thank you. He's gone, Victor said gently. Died 8 weeks ago, but he died knowing he tried. Died knowing he made peace. Died knowing it's never too late. Similar scenes played out 11 more times. 11 families. 11 presentations, 11 moments of closure and healing and understanding. Some wept, some were silent, some told stories of men they had loved and lost, some shared photos, some just held the checks and felt the weight of recognition, of acknowledgement, of knowing that someone remembered, someone cared, someone thought their loss mattered enough to act. When the last check was presented, ceremony began. Official recognition, Pentagon representative, senators, press, the machinery of official memory grinding into motion. Names were read, 12 soldiers, 12 stories, 12 lives cut short, finally honored, finally remembered, finally carved into stone where they would remain as long as stone lasted, as long as memory held, as long as people came to this wall and touched these names and felt the weight of sacrifice. Victor touched each name, spoke to them, private words, personal goodbyes, 50 years of rage and pain, and carrying finally finding rest. Not gone, never gone, but transformed. From burden to responsibility, from rage to purpose, from hatred to love. Maya stood back, giving him space, giving him time, understanding that this was his moment, his closure, his healing. Bull was there, touching names of men he had served beside, survived beside, remembered beside. His own healing slower, quieter, but real, present, happening. Jake took photos, documented, preserved, made sure this moment lasted beyond just memory, beyond just today, made sure future generations would know what happened here, who these men were, what they gave, why it mattered. When ceremony ended, families gathered, not for official reception, but for each other, for shared understanding, for recognition that they were connected by loss, by service, by love stronger than death, by sacrifice that created bonds across decades and geography and all the things that normally separated people. Victor stood among them, no longer enemy, no longer threat, no longer monument to rage, just man who had suffered, who had survived, who had chosen to heal, who had brought them closure, who had honored their dead by honoring their living. An older woman approached him, 70s, elegant, composed. She extended her hand. "Colonel Kane, I'm Jennifer, your daughter." Victor froze. World stopped. Jennifer, his daughter, who he had not seen in 47 years, who had gotten restraining order against him, who had chosen safety over relationship, who had every right to hate him, to fear him, to stay away. And yet here she was. "Jennifer," he whispered, "I didn't know you were coming. I didn't expect. I don't deserve." She shook her head. "You deserve this. Deserve to know your daughter, your grandchildren, your family. I've been following what happened in Portland, what you did, how you changed, how you chose healing over hatred. And I realized my father died 50 years ago in Hanoi Hilton. But maybe part of him survived. Maybe part of him is coming back. Maybe it's not too late for us too." Behind her, two adults, man and woman, 30s, her children, Victor's grandchildren. "This is Michael and Sarah, your grandchildren. They wanted to meet you, wanted to know their grandfather, wanted to understand where they came from, what you served, what you gave." Victor could not speak, could only nod, could only accept the gift being offered, the grace, the second chance, the possibility that family could be rebuilt, that love could survive decades of separation, that it was never too late, never, ever too late. Jennifer's children stepped forward, uncertain but willing, curious but kind. They shook their grandfather's hand, asked questions, listened to stories, began the slow work of building relationship from ruins. Maya watched from distance, tears streaming. For Victor, for herself, for everyone who thought healing was impossible, who believed some things could not be fixed, who resigned themselves to carrying weight alone forever. It was possible. It was happening. Right here, right now, in front of memorial to dead. New life beginning, new connections forming, new hope rising. Bull approached, handed her tissue, smiled. Told him it would work out. Told him healing was possible. Stubborn bastard didn't believe me. But here we are. Here we are, Maya agreed. They stood together, watching Victor meet his family, watching families honor their dead, watching healing spread like ripples from stone thrown into water. Small at first, then wider, then touching shores you could not see from where you stood. This was the work. This was the mission. This was what warriors did when wars ended. They became builders, became healers, became the ones who turned tragedy into purpose, loss into legacy, death into life. Man. 3 months later, Riverside Cafe, where it all started. Maya sat at her corner table, laptop open, writing training manual for transitioning veterans, using everything she learned, everything Ben taught, everything Marcus showed her, everything Victor proved possible. Emma served coffee, back in barista apron. FBI had offered her promotion. She declined, said she preferred being Emily here, being person who made coffee and listened to stories and helped people one conversation at a time. Said espionage was important, but so was this. So was being present. So was creating safe space for people to be human. The Khe-Sanh House was thriving. Victor and Bull ran operations. 50 veterans served in first 3 months. Housing, counseling, job placement, medical care. Everything government promised and failed to deliver. Everything brothers in arms deserved. Maya's security firm was growing. 6 veterans hired. Training contracts with 3 police departments. Consulting work with FBI. Building something sustainable. Something meaningful. Something that honored Marcus by creating opportunities for others. David Goldman had launched his foundation, Goldman Institute for Intelligence Ethics, working with Congress to reform how intelligence agencies handled sources and assets, making sure Ben's mistakes were not repeated, making sure soldiers were not sacrificed to protect spies, making sure system was better, fairer, more accountable. He named his newborn son Benjamin Victor Goldman, bridge between generations, between former enemies, between past and future. A young woman entered cafe, late 20s, military bearing, lost expression. The look Maya recognized immediately, the look she had worn, the look of warrior trying to figure out who she was when she was not soldier anymore. The woman sat alone, ordered coffee, stared at nothing. Maya saved her document, closed laptop, stood, walked over. "Excuse me, I don't mean to intrude, but you look like you could use someone to talk to. First coffee's on me if you want company." The young woman looked up, surprised, wary, hopeful. "How did you know?" Maya smiled. "Because someone knew when I needed it and reminded me it gets better, that healing is possible, that purpose exists even when you can't see it yet, that warriors become guardians, and guardians never stop protecting." She sat down. Emma brought 2 coffees, knew the routine, had seen this before, would see it again. The cycle continuing, the healing spreading. The young woman's name was Christina. Army medic, 3 tours, medical discharge, PTSD, nightmares, struggling to adjust, feeling lost, feeling alone, feeling like burden instead of asset. Maya listened, really listened, the way Ben had listened to her, the way Victor learned to listen, the way healing required. Presence, attention, witness to pain without judgment, without trying to fix, just acknowledging, understanding, validating. She shared resources, Khe-Sanh House contact, VA programs, therapy recommendations, her own phone number with instruction to call anytime, day or night, crisis or just conversation, whatever was needed. Christina wept, grateful, relieved, the knowledge that she was not alone lifting weight she did not know she was carrying. They talked for 2 hours, about war, about peace, about transition, about finding purpose when old purpose disappeared, about being more than trauma, more than diagnosis, more than what happened in combat. When Christina left, she walked different, straighter, lighter, the way people walk when hope returns, when possibility emerges, when tomorrow feels less terrifying than it did this morning. Maya returned to her table, opened laptop, added Christina's story to the manual. Another chapter, another lesson, another proof that this worked, that showing up mattered, that one person could make difference, that guardians multiplied by creating guardians. Her phone buzzed, text from Victor. Khe-Sanh House full, open second location, 30 more veterans housed. This is working, Maya. Ben's money is saving lives. Marcus's sacrifice is meaningful. Thank you for making me see it, for forcing me to heal, for being guardian when I needed one. Maya smiled, typed response. You did the hard part. You chose healing. You opened your heart. You let go of rage. I just showed up. We all just showed up. That's all we can do. Show up, do the work, choose tomorrow over yesterday. She looked around café, Emma cleaning counter, regular customers reading papers, college students studying, normal people living normal lives. The beautiful mundane miracle of peace, of safety, of world where people could sit in cafes without fear. This was what Marcus died for, what Ben spent 80 years protecting, what Victor's brothers sacrificed to defend. Not abstract concept, not government, not ideology, but this, real people, real moments, real lives filled with small joys and quiet connections and simple grace of being human together. That was worth fighting for, worth dying for, worth living for. Maya Reeves, age 32, former Navy SEAL, current Guardian, had found her purpose, her place, her peace. She was showing up, making difference, honoring dead by serving living, using training for protection instead of destruction, being weapon only when necessary and shield whenever possible. She thought about Ben, about his gravestone. He tried. 2 words that said everything, that captured whole life, that reminded everyone who saw them that perfection was impossible but effort was mandatory, that failing was acceptable but not trying was not, that legacy was measured in attempts not achievements, in showing up not succeeding. She thought about Marcus, about Kandahar, about choice that haunted her, but different now, not crushing weight but foundation, not prison but purpose, not shame but responsibility. He died protecting people. She would live doing same, different context, same calling, same honor. She thought about Victor, about 50 years of rage transformed to service, about daughter returned, about family rebuilt, about proof that it was never too late. Never, ever, too late. She thought about Emma, about young agent who chose human connection over career advancement, who understood that sometimes most important intelligence was knowing when someone needed coffee and conversation, who proved that small acts of kindness were not small at all, were revolutionary, were world-changing. She thought about them all, the unlikely family, the chosen tribe, the people who found each other through case and stayed connected through choice, through shared understanding that weight was lighter when carried together, that healing happened in community, that guardians needed guardians too. Outside Portland lived its life, people working, shopping, loving, fighting, living, the everyday chaos that soldiers protected, that warriors died for, that guardians watched over. Inside Cafe, 2 veterans talked, shared stories, connected. Another link in chain, another ripple spreading, another proof that work continued, that mission remained, that purpose existed for those willing to find it. This was legacy, not monuments, not medals, not glory, but this, person to person, soul to soul, human to human, showing up, sharing weight, offering hope, creating possibility that tomorrow could be better than yesterday because someone chose to make it so. Maya Reeves was that someone, would always be that someone, until breath stopped and strength failed and purpose called her home to whatever waited beyond. But until then, until that day, she would be here, present, protecting, persistent, purposeful, guardian standing watch, keeper of flame, bridge between past and future, proof that warriors could become peacemakers, that soldiers could become teachers, that weapons could become shields, that violence could birth healing if people chose it, worked for it, believed in it. She was the proof they all were. Ben, Victor, Bull, Jake, Tommy, Emily, Father O'Brien, David, Christina, every veteran who walked into Quezon House, every person who chose healing, every guardian who showed up. Together, they were building something. Not perfect, not complete, but real, present, growing, spreading, multiplying, a movement, a mission, a calling. The quiet revolution of broken people choosing to heal, of warriors becoming protectors, of survivors becoming thrivers, of dead weight becoming living purpose. This was the answer. This was the way. This was what came after war, after trauma, after loss. This rebuilding, this reconnection, this refusal to let darkness win, this insistence that light existed if you kept walking toward it, if you kept showing up, If you kept trying, Ben tried, Victor tried, Maya tried, they all tried, and trying was enough, had to be enough, because it was all anyone could do, all anyone could give, all that mattered in final accounting. Not success, not victory, not perfection, but effort, presence, persistence, the stubborn insistence that tomorrow deserved chance even when today was agony. That hope remained even when evidence suggested otherwise. That love was stronger than hate if given opportunity, if protected, if nurtured, if believed in. Maya Reeves believed, would always believe, would never stop believing, because that was what Guardians did, what Marcus taught her, what Ben showed her, what Victor proved possible. They believed, they persisted, they endured, they overcame, they healed, they lived, really lived, fully, completely, with purpose and presence and peace. And that was victory, the only kind that lasted, the only kind that mattered, the only kind worth fighting for. The last Guardian stood watch. The work continued. The mission remained. The purpose endured. And in small cafe in Portland, on ordinary Thursday afternoon, healing happened. Hope spread. Tomorrow became possible. One person at a time. One conversation at a time. One moment of presence at a time. That was how wars ended. How peace began. How legacy was built. How guardians multiplied. How broken world was slowly, carefully, painstakingly healed by people who refused to give up. Refused to surrender. Refused to accept that darkness won. Light existed, love remained, hope endured, healing happened. And Maya Reeves, the last guardian, keeper of the watch, protector of the peace, would make sure it continued. Always, forever, until the very end and then beyond, in legacy left, in people touched, in healing spread, in hope given, in lives saved, in futures built. That was immortality, not living forever, but mattering always. Being remembered not for how you died, but for how you lived, what you gave, what you built, who you helped, how you loved. Benjamin Goldman mattered. Marcus Reyes mattered. Victor Kane mattered. They all mattered because they lived purposefully, gave fully, built something lasting. And Maya Reeves would do the same, was doing the same, would continue doing the same. For them, for herself, for everyone, for always. The last guardian, standing watch, until the very end, and then beyond. The end.